Hey guys, welcome to Hardcore. I'm Chill, that's Miko.
Hi, everyone.
And today we are asking the almost maybe second most important question, maybe first most important question. Should I be in a relationship? Or should I stay single? We all have that aunt or uncle who's in their 60s, 70s, and they've just been single their whole lives, living their best lives. Is that their best lives? Should they have gotten married? I don't know. Let's find out based off of your human design. Bow, 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 bow. That's not the intro I was going for, but I'm happy that it came out. There we go.
Me too. It was amazing. It was flowy. It was entertaining. It was. What do you guys think? Leave it in the comments below.
So, first and foremost, or should I say primarily and most importantly, entering into a relationship has to be done with your strategy and authority. Guys, this is like human design basics. If we haven't stressed this point enough in 99.9% of episodes we've recorded, are you even listening? But really, though, it comes down to following your strategy and authority. And the connection charts that, when you put your human design together and overlap your potential partner's human design, that matters far less than how you're entering into a relationship. So, dope if you have some electromagnetics. Challenging if you have some compromised channels, for sure. But, that's not the end all be all to your connection with that other human. It really breaks down to you, first and foremost, and then them, secondly, right? If you guys are both aligned, dope. It's going to be a sweet relationship if you're both into it. So, those are very high level things. Miko, what else should someone be looking at, whether it's their chart, themselves? Take us deeper into this.
So, I personally am of the opinion that spending time with yourself is really, really useful before stepping into a relationship. But that is not something that you need to absolutely do if you have a partner that will understand how to give you space, how to give you support, and how to give you understanding if you want to take the self-development journey or self-discovery journey during your relationship. So I feel like if you have a relationship that is able to create this space for you while you're doing that, that's great. However, if you don't, it is really super helpful when you have this time, the single lifestyle for yourself for a certain amount of time. And that doesn't mean that you go sleeping around with everyone at every turn, but it is more about going inwards. So this is what it's all about. Going inwards, figuring out who you are, whether you're in a relationship or whether you're single. And for me, that was a 9-month stay in India. I've been single for quite some time in my life, actually. I had a lot of time to reflect and figure out who I was. But one of the most impactful times was my 9 months in India, where I really had all this time just to focus on myself, to figure out what it is I want, and to figure out who it is I am. So this, of course, always develops throughout your life. There is not ever going to be a, yes, this is me, and that's it kind of answer, because I feel like we always have something to work on. So that is also why you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be 100% aligned to enter into a relationship. If you are currently single and you're asking yourself, okay, but when is the right time to enter into a relationship? It is not when you're 100% healed, because that is very unrealistic to put that pressure onto yourself, to put that kind of a goal for yourself. It is an ongoing journey. And the way I see it is that even if you've spent a lot of time being single and diving into yourself, if you've gone and isolated yourself in some way to dive into yourself, the real test as to how far you've come is going to be when you are connecting with others, when you're in interaction with others, because that's when you will see if all the self-work you've done actually worked. Because others are always going to trigger you in some way if you haven't completed the work, or if there still is some residue and you still need to work on certain aspects. This is how it's going to show up. This is how you're going to be able to see what it is you still need to work on. And if you have a partner that is able to then guide you towards things that you may want to take a deeper look at, or support you when you do the work yourself, that is amazing. That is beautiful.
So if you're not like Miko and spending 9 months at an ashram in India, and you're kind of a bit more like me in that sense, not spending 9 months at an ashram in India, did you take a vow of silence while you were there?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I haven't
So-
done a Vipassana retreat yet, but I want to. My
That's
brother
fair.
considers me as totally insane for wanting to do that, but
So only a little bit eat, pray, love. Got it.
oh,
Cool.
no. My life has been very much eat, pray, love. I lived in Italy as well. I went to India, and then I went to Bali.
So now you have to write a
It's been
book.
Very much.
Perfect.
It's already
Okay.
been written.
There you go. So if you're not the eat, pray, love lifestyle, and you do things a little bit more like 99.9% of the people out there, just throwing that out there, my self-reflective phase, I'm now realizing this as you're talking about this, came when I was like 18, 19, after I like got out of a pretty serious relationship, like high school boyfriend wise, and then was single, like going to college on the other side of the US. Dude, just like a lot of like, okay, there was a lot of weed smoking, but also a lot of like book reading, self-reflection, who I was then, who I wanted to be now, / now, that was like a decade plus ago. But I think that there was a lot of self-reflection in that time, in addition to like school studying and just more quiet, like in my own life, which I think was really helpful. Because then I met David I met David around that same time, but we were just friends for like 2-ish years. So yeah, I think that that's just a different way of approaching this. And then since then, like having been married almost a decade, there have been different times throughout our relationship together that both of us have taken the time to do like the growth that we've needed to do. And we've seen that in each other, and then allowed each other the space and time needed to do that. So that's what it can look like if you don't want to go to India for 9 months, or Bali, or live in Italy, or eat, pray, love your life. Just throwing that out there as an alternative. I would love to do that, it just didn't turn out that way.
Thank you for sharing the relationship perspective in a healthy relationship where you guys actually give each other the space. That is beautiful. So that's exactly what I meant, where you don't have to do this as a single. You can also, if you have the right partner, do it within a relationship. However, what you cannot do in every relationship, but would be recommended, and this is also something that you guys navigate really well, is the sleeping in your own aura element. Because for everyone that's not watching, please go to YouTube or watch it on Spotify. You can also watch it there. Yeah, this is something that is an important part of really getting to know yourself. So that's also why I appreciated being single and sleeping in my own bed for a very long time, because I really got to feel what different energies feel like. And that also goes through feeling the planets, because the planets, and this is the kind of the purest form of energy conditioning, I would say, because you are born on a certain day at a certain time in a certain place, and this is how the planets are conditioning you. They're conditioning you on the time of birth. They're conditioning you throughout the birth process, like the pre-birth process, the pregnancy. They're conditioning you after. They're continuously conditioning you, but the moment you were born and approximately 88 days before you were born, that is the time where you will get your design and your personality human design chart aspects. This is how it happens, in case we never disclosed that before. Additionally to that, you also get conditioned every single day by the planets. So sleeping in your own aura, you will get to feel these transitions, the planetary transits, and you will get to feel how you feel differently whenever a planet transits into another gate, or starts to define another center. We both feel it a lot when the emotional solar plexus gets defined. And it's really a shift. So following the transits, figuring out what those feel like when they're transiting, it's very intriguing. Especially as well, to me, it feels different when different channels are defining my emotional solar plexus. So there are some where I feel super emotional, also when they're connecting my hanging gates. And there are other times where I don't feel as emotional, but I can feel the emotional solar plexus still being defined. So sleeping in your own aura will give you this understanding as to who you are without any conditioning by deciphering how it feels when certain aspects are being defined by the planets. And when you are with other people, you are also being conditioned, but it is not as pure of a conditioning as when you're going by what the planets feel like, because every single one of us is already conditioned by our social surrounding, by our upbringing, by everything that has happened to us in our life. We have been conditioned by it, and there's always a choice that we can make, whether we want to live in our shadow or whether we want to move towards our potential and live out our potential. We can take this decision every single moment of our lives. But when we're encountering another human design chart, we see the blueprint, and this is also the challenging part in giving readings, because we see the potential. We also can see the shadow, but we see the potential and how they could be, but depending on what they've experienced in their lives, they may not live out their potential. So even if you're meeting someone with a specific chart, it is not a pure energy that you're encountering, because you don't necessarily, even if you would have their chart in front of you, you wouldn't necessarily know how they're living out their design. Did that make sense to you? Would you like to add anything to sleeping in your own aura and why that is so important to do?
As a non-sacral being, I can tell you that sleeping next to a sacral being feels like your car motor is running all night long. Unless you are exhausted from the day, and in my experience, very well hydrated, it is challenging to have a solid night's sleep next to a sacral being. However, non-sacral being to non-sacral being, bruh, game changer. You sleep like a baby. At least I've heard. I've never had that experience. Long story long, if you can be in your own space, in your own aura, while you're recharging from your day, game changer for you. And that doesn't mean you have to like go 1950s style beds on TV shows, but it might be beneficial if you do. There are sometimes though where David and I will just like take a break, and I'll be like, babe, I just like really need some good sleep. Can you just like go sleep in the other room? And he's down for it most of the time when I ask. So I think, again, this comes down to the relationship that you have with your partner, the communication style that you have with your partner, and just kind of being open, expressive of your needs. So it really does change the game, though. I sleep so much better without him. Love you, babes.
I've heard this from clients too. Non-sacral clients, that they're like, yeah, that actually changes so much. I feel rested in the morning. That's what they're saying. I personally, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to have to test it out. But for now, I feel super good next to my manifesting generator partner. So
honeymoon vibes. Honeymoon phase vibes, bro.
But I've never slept this good ever next to someone. Never. Yeah. Even as
maybe
kids,
he
when
just
my brother
has
was
like
sleeping.
maybe he just has a day full of activities that he like straight up runs his motor out, and that's what you're experiencing.
And he's very aligned.
That yeah, that helps. And not a snorer. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes. So, yeah. Those are kind of the general advice when it comes to should you be single or should you be in a relationship? And always follow, as we said already, your strategy along with your inner authority. And if you don't know what that means, then go check out episode 3 and 4 of this podcast because we explain all of that there. And that is just truly the most important thing to entering into a relationship and to have a successful relationship. So regardless of your connection chart, what that looks like, the challenges you may be facing, if you're not entering correctly, that's going to be a bigger challenge than if you're entering into it correctly. Also, understanding your human design chart, where you're being defined or where you are defining others. So that means, where are your centers defined, and or where are you defining other people, is also going to be very helpful in whether or not you should or shouldn't be in this relationship. If you, for example, had extreme emotional challenges and or trauma in your childhood, being with someone that is emotionally defined, if you are undefined emotionally, can cause a lot of challenges. It also always depends on how your emotional solar plexus is being defined by this other person. But that can be quite a challenge if this is what happens.
Next level to look at is definitions. So are you a single definition, meaning that you have one channel in your chart connecting two different centers, and or all of your centers that you have in your chart are fully connected channel to channel? So for example, in my chart, I only have one channel connecting my throat to my ego center, making me a single definition. However, if you have a split definition or a triple split or a quad split, and I'll explain all of those momentarily, it can feel different being in a relationship. So someone with a single definition, meaning that they feel like they are whole and on their own by themselves, they may not need to be in a relationship, or they may not rely on the other person in that relationship to feel whole. Thus, maybe overall having less of a desire to be in a relationship. And I think that this may be an important point, because as a single definition, I was never really seeking out like having a partner in high school, in college, whatever. Majority of the relationships that I was in were all like with friends that I had built like really close bonds with over time. Like David's my best friend, you know what I mean? So think of it like that. Like, it doesn't feel like you need someone in your world, in your life, but that doesn't mean that you won't or don't want to be in a relationship, or you don't end up in a relationship, if that makes sense, right? So it's not an end all be all kind of thing. Split definitions, meaning that your chart, like two centers are connected somewhere in your chart, and then another 2 to plus centers are connected somewhere else in your chart, and there are no channels connecting them together. This could feel like you actually want a relationship in your life to help you, quote unquote, bridge those gaps in your human design chart. If you have a narrow split, meaning that a single gate is missing and someone in your life can fulfill that gate for you, it can be a little bit easier to bridge that split. Or if you have a wide split where it's a full channel or maybe multiple channels connecting, that someone in your life would need to help you connect, it can be a bit more challenging, but you're always going to be seeking those out to feel fulfilled, or rather, you'll have more of a tendency to be seeking someone out to kind of bridge those gaps for you and feel like you are one person. So with that other person in a relationship, you may feel more whole, you may feel more you, because all of you is being put together energetically with that other person.
So when we're then looking at triple splits, that means that there are 3 different center islands. So you may have 2 centers here, 2 centers there, 2 centers there, and that doesn't mean that it's 2, 2, 2. It can be 3, 2, 2. Like, there can be a different amount of centers that are just separate. They're not interconnected through gates or channels. A triple split is often okay being in a relationship, but it already starts to feel the desire to also mingle with others from time to time. So they do enjoy being bridged in different ways by different people, not solidly by one person. Whereas a quadruple split, where you have 4 islands that are not connected with one another, they're often an 8 and 1 type or a 9 and 0, nowhere to go kind of relationship within themselves. And the quadruple splits often prefer open relationships or relationships that provide them with a lot of space and freedom, even if they are committed to one partner. So it doesn't mean that you can't be in a relationship. It just means that a quadruple split most likely will enjoy just roaming and feeling connected to different people at different times. And that, as I said, it doesn't have to be a romantic connection, but it can just be a friendship or family connection as well. Maybe even going to work. So yeah, that's the kind of relationship style that you feel more drawn to. Of course, we also talked about this in episode 65, where we talk about the sexual dynamics. So do check that one out if you haven't listened to that one yet, as this will explain as well how you connect with people on a sexual level to get more insights in romantic relationships. So if you are a 9 and 0, nowhere to go within yourself. So that means that all 9 centers are defined and are either a single or a quadruple split definition. You are most likely okay with being single. So there's not going to be this strong drive and desire. However, if you are a 6-line profile, you may still be seeking out that soul partner, that soulmate, that one person. This is something that the 6-line often does. But if you are a 9 and 0, nowhere to go single definition, you may feel complete within yourself. So you have less space for others to come in. So as a quadruple split 9 and 0, nowhere to go, you may feel locked in, on the other hand, when you are in a monogamous relationship or when you are in a relationship that just doesn't give you the freedom to attend social gatherings.
So some other insights before we wrap up. Seeking love internally versus externally. I feel like a lot of times we have been taught to seek love and recognition from external sources. And again, that's a bit of conditioning. That's a bit of like cultural expectations, especially from like Disney movies. Like you have to find your prince. Blah. Sorry for people who actually enjoy that. I love a good rom-com, but like Disney princesses, girl, do your own thing. Mulan is a Disney princess. And Pocahontas, those are some boo-boo kittens I can get behind. So there favorite. We go. Badasses. But yeah, I feel like rom-coms do the same, right? Like, oh, he's out there, that one person. Don't get me wrong, I love a good rom-com. But I think a lot of these put these notions into our heads that either our life has to be a rom-com, or it's got to be like 50 Shades of Grey status, or like Miko's real life Eat, Pray, Love, you know? But at the end, we don't all have to come out with a romance, even though all of these external sources are putting that into our heads. We can still be complete and fulfilled single, right? Like if that's your decision, if that's your choice, if that's your life path. The reality of it is that we can find all of that love in ourselves, right? If we're really doing the self-work and the in-depth reflection that it takes to kind of get there. So it's a long journey. It may be a challenging journey. You may cry, you may laugh, but it's really going to be worth it to do that self. You will cry.
But you will cry.
You may eat several bags of Hershey's Hugs and a lot of Chinese food. Who knows?
Watch a lot of rom-com movies.
Yes!
I actually never really got into rom-coms very much, but
when I was I think it was around that same time, Friends with Benefits came out with Mila Kunis and Justin Timberlake. And then there was also another movie with like Ashton Kutcher and Natalie Portman. That one I don't remember, but the premises were very, very similar. And I just think it's super cute because Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis got married. And they had very similar like Friends with Benefits style movies. Super cute. Anyway, if you have, again, more final thoughts. If you have an open or undefined G center, make sure you are in an environment that fulfills you, that lights you up, because that's going to be really important so that you will attract the right individuals into your world, right? And that can be the physical environment, that can be surrounding yourself with people who make you feel really good, a combination of all of it. Maybe you're a beachy, maybe you're a mountainy person, any and all of those things. Maybe your apartment is your home cave. Decorate your apartment to make you feel real good, right? Like there's a lot of different ways that you can make that happen. You don't necessarily have to move across the country for it or across the world for it. And last but not least, take time and space to bring balance into your person, your inner sanctuary as a human. Do the self work, do the crying, do the laughing, do the eating Chinese food, whatever you need. And that will help you attract the right people into your world who are meant to be there, right? Like, because you can attract some shitty, disgusting people into your world too. But if you're doing the self work, you're putting out there your highest self, you're going to attract the people who deserve to be in your world. And that higher frequency that you're putting out will be the higher frequency of the people that you attract. And a final quote by Miko. I don't know if this is actually your quote or you've taken this from somewhere, and I love it. When the student is ready, the master appears. And the same goes for the right partner. I feel like that's the kind of quote where you have a fly on your hand, and they're like, when you can take this fly off of my hand, then you will be ready. Like that's how I feel like the level of intensity that quote just exuded into the world.
It's a very, very famous old quote, but I don't know who said it first. But the way that you just described it reminded me of the Ninja Turtles. Well, yeah, that concludes our episode for today. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any kind of feedback or insights regarding how you've navigated being single / being in relationships, let us know in the comments. We would love to hear it. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week.
Ciao, guys.
Bye. Record right now. I feel like some gems are going to come out of this.
All right. The tea's going to kick in real soon.
I can see that. I feel like your eyes have already gone. They've already dropped.
I'm just going to...
A third.
Hey guys, welcome to Hardcore. Okay, you can do it. I don't think I have the mental capacity to be able to describe triple and quad splits right now. Thank you. Losing me.
Okay, we gotta hurry up with this tea. I do the rest, or what do you want to do? Are you okay to do the rest? Are you still with me?
I'll be okay. Thank you. Whew. Yeah, so a couple of other insights here. Whether you're seeking love internally versus externally.
Yeah, it's not
I can
very
do this.
well written.
I can do it. Okay.
Eat, pray, love. Hey, look at that.
Okay. So some other...
Sorry. I got it. Just gonna mute myself.
Cool. So some other insights before we wrap up. Where... long story long. I use that phrase way too much. So the reality is that... we can find all that with... Ah, there we go. Boop. Hardcore. The human